Welcome to Surviving AI.
All right, let's get right into it. If you're listening to this, you probably think you have a handle on AI. You know ChatGPT. You probably played around with Midjourney, maybe generated a funny image of a cat in a spacesuit just to, see if it could do it.
Right, the basics.
The basics. Do you think you're keeping up? But we are looking at a stack of sources here. We've got the latest earnings calls from Alphabet, deep market analysis from Menlo Ventures, raw user data from Aptopia, and First Page Sage. And the picture they paint is... it's not what I expected.
It is definitely not the picture most people have in their heads. I think most people have this this very linear view of AI progress.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's like, oh, the chatbot got a little smarter this month. But the data suggests we are in a chaotic exponential phase. The scale and the speed are, frankly, they're unprecedented.
Exactly. We're calling this the battlefield report for a reason. This isn't a product review.
No.
We aren't here to tell you which chatbot tells better jokes or writes better haikus. We are here to look at the numbers, the raw, sometimes terrifying numbers that show exactly who is winning, who is losing, and most importantly, what this massive shift means for your career.
And that's the key.
Because the headline number, it's staggering.
It really is. If you look at the Menlo Ventures report, they estimate there are approximately 1.7 to 1.8 billion global AI users today.
1.8 billion. Let's just pause on that for a second. That is hard to even wrap your head around.
It's not a niche market anymore.
Not at all.
It is nearly a quarter of the world's population.
Yeah.
And if we narrow that down to the U.S., the penetration is even deeper. We're looking at 61% of adults having used AI in the past 6 months.
61%.
And nearly 1 in 5 use it daily. But the most shocking part for me isn't just the total number.
No.
It's the velocity. It's the speed at which we got here.
Right. The rate of adoption. Because
Yeah.
we usually compare these things to the internet or the smartphone, but this,
Yeah.
This is different.
It's completely different. I mean, think about the previous tech giants. It took Facebook roughly 5 years post-launch to reach significant ad revenue and ubiquitous usage.
Sure, I remember that.
Google AdWords took 4 years to really click with advertisers. Consumer AI reached that 1.7 billion user mark in just 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
We have never seen technology adopted this fast in human history.
It's faster than the smartphone. It's faster than the internet itself.
Much faster. And because it's moving that fast, the landscape is shifting under our feet before we even realize it.
And that brings us to the central thesis of this deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
For the last 2 years, AI was synonymous with ChatGPT. It was a monopoly.
This is the Kleenex of AI. You didn't use an LLM, you ChatGPT it.
ChatGPT'd it. Exactly.
Yeah.
But that monopoly is over. We have shifted from a monopoly to a fractured, aggressive, highly specialized ecosystem.
And the danger for the listener, for anyone trying to survive in the workforce, is what we call the fragmentation trap.
Okay, let's define that.
The concept here is that fragmentation accelerates displacement.
Fragmentation accelerates displacement. That sounds ominous. Let's unpack that. Because I think most people still just open ChatGPT, type in a prompt, and think they're covered.
And that is an increasingly dangerous assumption.
So here is our roadmap for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We are going to look at the decline of the king, which is ChatGPT. We're going to look at the rise of the challenger, Google Gemini.
Then the specialists?
We have the specialist,
Love that.
Claude. And then we have these wild cards like Perplexity and DeepSeek that are completely upending the economics of the industry.
And for each of these, we aren't just looking at user counts. We're looking at what jobs they're automating. We're connecting the tool directly to the paycheck.
So let's start at the top, the titans. ChatGPT versus Google Gemini. Now, I use the word decline regarding ChatGPT, which might sound crazy to some listeners because, I mean, they're still huge.
They are massive. We have to be clear, ChatGPT is still the dominant force. We're talking about roughly 800 million weekly active users.
800 million.
About 122 million people use it every single day. If you look at the First Page Sage data, they still have the majority of the search market share for AI. So they aren't going bankrupt tomorrow.
But there's a big but hanging over those numbers.
There is a massive but. The trend lines are pointing down, market share is eroding, and it's eroding fast.
How fast are we talking?
In early 2025, ChatGPT had something like 87% of the global market. That is total dominance.
Unheard of.
But by the end of the year, depending on which source you look at, Apptopia or First Page Sage, that dropped to somewhere between 64% and 68%.
That is a 20-point drop in a single year. In the tech world, that's not a stumble.
No.
That's a slide, a free fall almost.
It is a massive bleed. And in the U.S. mobile app market, it's even starker. Their share fell from 69% to around 45%.
Wow.
And even more concerning for OpenAI is that traffic metrics, specifically the time spent in the app, are stagnant or declining. People are spending about 6.4% less time in the app than they used to.
So what does this actually mean? Why is the king losing the crown? Is the product getting worse? I mean, a lot of people feel like it is.
It's not necessarily that the product is getting worse, though there's debate on that. It's that the default behavior is changing. For a long time, ChatGPT was the only game in town.
Right. It was the only option.
Now, users are realizing that for specific tasks, there are better, more specialized tools. If you want to code, you go elsewhere. If you want research, you go elsewhere. But more importantly, there is a giant waking up next door. Google Gemini.
Ugh.
And if you want to talk about explosive growth, this is it.
Okay, lay the numbers on me.
Gemini went from 350 million monthly active users to 750 million in just 8 months.
Wait, say that again?
350 million to 750 million. In 8 months, they effectively doubled their user base in less than a year.
That is wild. And their market share climbed from roughly 5% to over 20% in that same time period?
Right. And you have to ask, how did they do that? Is Gemini's model twice as good as GPT-4? Is that what's driving this?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, the benchmarks say it's good, but is it that much better?
It's competitive. In the vision arena, this is a great little test where users actually vote blindly on which AI gives a better answer. Gemini has caught up technically. It's neck and neck.
So it's not just pure performance.
The growth isn't just about model quality, it's about distribution. It's what I call invisible adoption.
Invisible adoption. I like that. Explain what that looks like for the average user.
Think about it. ChatGPT is a destination. You have to actively decide to go there. You open a tab, you type in the URL, you log in, it's an action.
Okay.
Gemini isn't just a website you have to visit. It is being embedded in Chrome. It's in Gmail. It's in Google Workspace. If you're using Google Docs, Gemini's right there in the sidebar or that little help me write button.
Because you don't have to go to AI.
AI comes to you. It's just
Yeah.
there. It reduces the friction to zero.
That's a huge tactical advantage. It's the classic ecosystem play.
Precisely. And the corporate data backs this up. 95% of the top 20 SaaS companies, we're talking massive platforms like Salesforce, Shopify, are using Gemini as their AI engine. It is becoming the infrastructure of the internet software we use every single day.
So if I'm a professional, the implication here is that relying solely on ChatGPT is becoming a liability.
A huge one.
Because if my company runs on Google Workspace or if I'm working in Salesforce, the AI that matters to my boss, and more importantly, the AI that has access to my company's data, is Gemini, not ChatGPT.
Exactly. You can't be an expert in a tool that isn't integrated into your workflow. It's about context.
Right.
If your organization is on Google Workspace, Gemini is going to have context that ChatGPT simply cannot see. It can read your drive. It can check your calendar. It can scan your Gmail to help draft a reply.
It's in the room with you.
ChatGPT is an outsider looking in. Gemini's in the room with you. That's the difference.
That is a crucial distinction. It's about context and integration. But this brings us to the second category of tools. We've talked about the mass market titans. Now I want to talk about the deep work tools. Because while ChatGPT and Gemini are fighting for the general public, there is a player that has quietly captured the elite professionals.
Anthropic's Claude.
Yes, Claude. Now, looking at the user numbers, Claude seems small. Only about 30 million monthly active users.
Right.
Compared to Gemini's 750 million, that's almost a rounding error. So why are we even talking about them in the same breath?
It looks small on the surface, but if you look at the revenue, it tells a completely different story. They are projected to hit $2.2 billion in revenue in 2025.
2.2 billion with a B.
With that small user base, that is massive efficiency per user. But the metric that really matters here, the one that should make every knowledge worker sit up and take notice, is engagement time.
The Apptopia data on this was fascinating. Walk us through that.
It's incredible. The average daily active user on Claude spends 34.7 minutes per session.
34 minutes? That's already high.
That is significantly higher than ChatGPT or Perplexity. But wait, it gets better. If you look at the power users, that top 10% of users, their time spent increased from 39 minutes a day to 186 minutes a day.
Whoa. Stop there. 186 minutes. That's over 3 hours.
3 hours a day.
Nobody spends 3 hours a day chatting with a bot for fun. That's not generating a recipe.
Exactly. You don't spend 3 hours asking for cocktail recipes or writing limericks. You spend 3 hours because you are doing deep, complex work.
What kind of work?
We are talking about coding, legal analysis, complex writing, financial modeling. The data shows that somewhere between 37% to 40% of all conversations on Claude are math and coding related.
So Claude isn't a chatbot. It's a coworker. It's an analyst.
It is a replacement for a junior analyst or a junior developer. And look at the churn rate for these power users. It dropped 20%.
What does that mean?
It means once people start using Claude for serious work, they don't leave. It becomes essential to their workflow. It's sticky.
I want to dig into that replacement idea. If I'm spending 3 hours a day with Claude, what am I not doing that I used to do?
You aren't doing the grunt work. You aren't manually debugging code line by line. You aren't reading through 50 pages of case law to find one specific precedent. Claude is doing the heavy lifting of reasoning and synthesis.
So, if you are a knowledge worker, a lawyer, a strategist, a coder, Claude is likely the tool that is either going to augment you to an incredible degree or threaten your job.
It is the tool for thinking. If ChatGPT is for doing and getting quick answers, Claude is for reasoning. It's the one you trust with the complicated stuff where accuracy and nuance matter more than just speed.
And then on the other side of the deep work coin, we have Microsoft Copilot.
The productivity standard, the one that's already inside every office.
Now, Copilot has about 14% market share, but like Gemini, it's embedded, it's in Office 365, it's everywhere. But the stat that jumped out at me from the Forrester report was the time savings.
The 9-hour stat.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Forrester found that Copilot saves the average user 9 hours per month.
9 hours a month.
And we need to really think about what that number means. 9 hours a month doesn't sound like a lot in isolation. You might think, okay, that's an hour or two a week. Big deal.
Right. I can see people shrugging that off.
But that is more than one full workday a month.
Yeah.
Over a year, that is 108 hours. That's nearly 3 weeks of productivity.
3 weeks of extra work per employee.
Or if you are a CFO looking at a spreadsheet, that is 3 weeks of work you don't need to pay a human to do.
Oof. When you put it that way.
We have to put it that way. That is how the market views it. 70% of users in these studies said they were more productive. They're using it for meeting summarization. There was a case study where one company saved 12,000 hours in just meeting summaries.
12,000 hours.
It's drafting emails, analyzing Excel data, creating PowerPoint presentations from a Word doc. It's all the glue work of corporate life.
Here's the corporate math. If I have a team of 1,000 employees and I can get the same output from 900 of them because of Copilot,
then you don't need the other 100. That is the harsh reality of efficiency games at this scale. It raises the bar for what a single human is expected to deliver.
it's an arms race.
It is. If you aren't using the tool to save those 9 hours, you are effectively 9 hours slower than the person sitting in the cubicle next to you. And over a year, you're 3 weeks behind.
That's a chilling thought. It turns efficiency into a requirement for survival. This is a perfect transition to our next section, the disruptors. Because if Copilot and Claude are making us more efficient at our jobs, these next tools are fundamentally changing how we get information and how much it costs. Let's talk about Perplexity.
Perplexity is the tool that I think is most misunderstood. People think it's just another search engine, a Google wrapper. It's not.
It's what then?
It's a research replacement. It's an answer engine.
They have 30 million users processing 60 to 70 million queries a day. But again, like with Claude, it's the user behavior that's so interesting. Users spend about 23 minutes per session.
Right. 23 minutes isn't a Google search. A Google search is what? 30 seconds? You click, you scan, you leave.
Right.
23 minutes is research. It's a conversation. It's explain the geopolitical implications of the semiconductor trade war and then refining that, asking for sources, digging deeper, asking follow-up questions.
The data shows that, right?
Yeah.
29% of their queries are academic or research-based.
And this brings us directly to the job impact. Think about the junior consultant, the paralegal, the market research analyst. Their job historically has been fetch and synthesize.
Go find 10 articles on this topic, summarize them, and tell me the key themes. I did that job.
We all did that job. Perplexity does that in seconds, with citations from live sources.
Exactly. It doesn't just find the links, it reads them for you and gives you the answer.
So if your value proposition to your employer is, I am good at Googling things and summarizing them, your value proposition just hit 0. Perplexity is the research replacement.
That is terrifying for anyone starting their career in those fields. It hollows out that entire entry-level learning curve.
It does.
But if Perplexity is threatening the research role, this next one is threatening the entire economics of the industry. Let's talk about DeepSeek.
DeepSeek. The China factor. The economic shock.
I feel like this came out of nowhere. One day nobody knew them, the next day they were in all the headlines.
It did shock the market. DeepSeek is a Chinese AI company. They hit 97 million users at their peak. But the user count isn't the disruption.
It's the price.
It's the price. It's free, right?
A consumer app is free. But the API, the cost for developers to build on top of their intelligence, is cents. Literally cents per million tokens. Compare that to OpenAI or Anthropic, where it costs dollars. It's orders of magnitude cheaper.
How are they doing that? Is it just subsidized by the state, or is the tech actually different?
It's the tech. They developed a model architecture, specifically their R1 model, that is incredibly efficient. It utilizes something called mixture of experts in a very aggressive way, meaning it only activates a fraction of its brain for any given query, so it requires less compute power.
Dramatically less. When they released this, NVIDIA's stock actually took a hit that day.
Because if you don't need as many massive expensive chips to run the AI,
then you don't need to buy as many H100 GPUs from NVIDIA. DeepSeek proved that the cost of intelligence is racing to 0.
what does that mean for the listener, though? Why should I care if the API costs cents instead of dollars?
It removes the barrier. It removes the excuse of, it's too expensive to automate that.
Oh,
If AI costs $20 an hour to run, you only automate high-value tasks. You automate the CEO's briefing. If AI costs 2 cents an hour to run, you automate everything.
everything.
You automate the email sorting, you automate the calendar scheduling, you automate basic customer service tickets. It opens the floodgates for widespread automation of low-level tasks.
So DeepSeek basically put a clearance sale sign on artificial intelligence.
Effectively, yes.
Yeah.
And that accelerates the speed at which companies will deploy these agents. It changes the ROI calculation for every business owner.
Speaking of acceleration, we have one more disruptor to mention, Grok.
Elon Musk's entry?
It hit about 3.4% market share, and it actually overtook Perplexity in traffic at one point, which was surprising. What is the play here? Is it just for trolls on X, or is there real utility?
The play is real-time access. That's the differentiator. Grok has the fire hose of X, formerly Twitter.
A global pulse.
Right. If news breaks, if a stock starts moving based on sentiment, Grok knows about it instantly because it has access to that live data stream.
Whereas other models have a lag.
They have a training cutoff, or they rely on Bing indexing, which takes time. Grok is the now, and we shouldn't underestimate its intelligence either. The Grok 3 model scored 100% on the American Invitational Mathematics exam.
100%.
100%,
Yeah.
a feat unmatched by the others at the time. So you have a tool that is hyper-aware of current events and is also mathematically perfect.
That's a potent combination.
For financial analysis, for trend forecasting, for anything that requires real-time synthesis, it's very powerful. Imagine a trader using Grok to analyze sentiment on a stock in real time while calculating complex risk ratios.
Okay, so we have covered the chatbots, the research tools, and the ecosystems. But there is one sector that is already seeing adoption rates that are, frankly, mind-blowing. The developer and creative economy.
Yes.
So let's talk about GitHub Copilot.
This is the crystal ball. If you want to know what happens to other knowledge work industries in 5 years, look at software development today.
The stats here are they're absurd. 15 million users, 1.3 million paid subscribers.
Yeah.
But here is the big number from the sources. AI now writes 46% of code for its users.
Let that sink in. Almost half of the code written by users of this tool is not written by a human.
It's unbelievable.
And in some languages, like Java, it's even higher, 61%.
61% of Java code is written by AI? That is staggering.
Yes, and the efficiency gains are undeniable. The data shows tasks are completed 55% faster. And get this, 96% of developers start using it the day they get it.
Wow.
This isn't shelfware. This isn't some piece of corporate software you buy and never use. It is immediate addictive adoption because it relieves the pain of typing boilerplate code.
But does this mean we need fewer developers? Or does it just mean developers build more stuff faster?
That is the eternal question, isn't it? The Jevons paradox suggests we will just consume more code, build more complex systems. But there is a nuance here in the data that's really important.
Right.
The report mentions that 29% of the generated Python code may contain security weaknesses.
So the AI writes fast, but it writes sloppy. Or insecurely, at least.
Sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It can introduce subtle bugs or vulnerabilities, so the job changes. You are no longer just the writer of code. You are the auditor. You are the editor. You are the architect.
Your job shifts from typing syntax to reviewing logic.
It honestly sounds like a higher level, more valuable job.
It is. But it also means the entry-level grunt work of coding, writing, boilerplate, setting up basic functions, that's gone. So how do junior developers learn if they never have to struggle through the basics?
That is a real concern. We are automating the training ground.
It's the calculator problem on steroids.
Yeah.
If you never learn long division, do you really understand the principles of math?
Exactly. And we are about to run that experiment on the entire software industry.
Now, moving from code to art. The Creative Suite. Midjourney, Canva, Leonardo AI.
This is where the money is flowing in the consumer space. Creative tools capture 45% of consumer AI spend. People are willing to pay for this because the output is so tangible and immediate.
Midjourney alone has $500 million in revenue.
And Canva, which many people still think of as a simple design tool, accounts for 44% of specialized AI use cases. Their new AI tools are incredibly powerful.
I use Canva AI all the time. It's magic. Make this presentation look professional. Boom, done. It saves me hours.
And what does that do to the graphic design market, to the freelance market?
It decimates the low end, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. If I need a logo or a stock image for a blog post or a slide deck cleanup, I used to pay a freelancer on Fiverr $50 or $100 for that.
Sure.
Now I do it in Midjourney or Canva for a monthly subscription fee. These tools are replacing hours and hours of graphic design and stock photography work. The disruption here is already mature. It's not coming soon. It's done.
So we've looked at the tools. Now we need to look at the battlefield as a whole, because the theme of this episode is who's winning and who's losing. And the market is shifting in a way that I don't think favors the generalist user. This is what you call the fragmentation trap.
This is the most critical takeaway for the listener. A year ago, the advice was learn ChatGPT. That was it. If you knew how to write prompts for ChatGPT, you were considered AI literate.
That is no longer true.
Not even close.
Because the market isn't consolidating around one winner, it's splintering.
It's splintering into specialized tools that are best in class for specific tasks. The new workflow isn't one bot, it's a stack.
Explain what you mean by a stack.
Think about a modern professional's day. You wake up, you check your email. That's Copilot or Gemini prioritizing your inbox and suggesting replies. You have to do a deep analysis on a legal contract. You upload it to Claude because it handles large context windows and complex reasoning better. You need to research a competitor for a meeting in an hour. You query Perplexity because it searches live web data and gives you cited summaries. You need to generate a visual for a slide deck for that meeting. You go to Midjourney.
So if I'm sitting there just using ChatGPT for every...
You're bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Right.
You are using a generalist tool against a series of specialist tools. Your output will be slower and lower quality than the person who knows how to orchestrate the stack.
Orchestrating the stack.
Yeah.
I like that phrase. It's like being a conductor of an orchestra.
That is the new job description. You are a manager of AI agents. You need to know which tool to pull from the tool belt for which specific problem. Default behavior is a career error.
But let's talk about the people who aren't orchestrating. Let's talk about the displacement, because the numbers here are sobering.
They are. In the tech sector alone, the reports we're looking at show 78,000 jobs lost in 2025.
78,000.
That averages out to 491 jobs lost every single day.
Almost 500 jobs a day. That is a massive amount of talent hitting the market. It's a shock to the system.
And when employers were asked in these surveys, 41% said they are planning cuts specifically due to AI efficiency. We can't sugarcoat that. That is displacement. That is companies saying we can now do more with less.
But there's a flip side, right? It's not all doom and gloom. The reports also talk about new jobs being created.
No, it's not, and this is important. The World Economic Forum and other sources estimate 97 million new roles will emerge compared to 85 million that are displaced.
So there is a net positive, a net gain of 12 million jobs.
Yes, but, and this is a massive but, The new jobs are not the same as the old jobs. The transition requires what we call AI fluency.
Right.
If you are a displaced copywriter, you don't automatically become an AI prompt engineer or an AI agent manager. There is a skills gap that you have to consciously, deliberately jump across. And that gap is where the pain lies for a lot of people.
And that jump is what this show is about, helping people make that jump. So let's map this out. I want to go sector by sector. If I'm listening to this, I want to know specifically what tool is coming for my job. Let's start with general knowledge work, admins, coordinators, a lot of middle management.
Your threat is the ecosystems. It's Microsoft Copilot and Google Gemini. If your job involves emails, scheduling, summarizing meetings, and basic coordination, Copilot is designed to automate you. It's not personal. It's just designed to handle that administrative friction that bogs companies down.
Okay. What about professional services? Lawyers, finance, consultants?
Claude. Hands down, Claude is the threat. It can read a 50-page contract in seconds and spot the liability clauses better than a tired junior associate at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
It doesn't get tired. It doesn't miss details. It's built for that kind of high-stakes reasoning.
Research roles, analysts, paralegals, junior academics.
Perplexity. It automates the information gathering and synthesis phase of work. If your job is finding things out, Perplexity finds them faster and often with better sources. GitHub Copilot. It's already writing half the code. If you are a coder who only knows how to write syntax, you are in trouble. If you are a coder who knows how to design systems and audit AI-generated code, you are supercharged.
And creatives, graphic designers, illustrators.
Midjourney, Leonardo, and Canva AI. The barrier to entry for creating good enough visuals has completely collapsed.
It's everywhere. There isn't really a safe harbor, is there? It touches every white-collar job.
The safe harbor is above the tools. The safe harbor is judgment, strategy, and complex human interaction.
What do you mean by that?
The AI can write the code, but it can't decide what app we should build to solve the customer's core problem. The AI can write the contract, but it can't negotiate the delicate terms with the opposing counsel, where trust and emotion and relationships are involved.
So we have to move up the value chain.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Immediately. You cannot stay in the execution layer of your job. You have to move to the strategy layer.
All right. We have covered a lot of ground. We've seen the decline of the monopoly, the rise of the ecosystem, the power of the specialists, and the cost disruption of the wildcards. Let's summarize the battlefield before we get to the homework for everyone listening.
The summary is this. The horse race is moving faster than any tech adoption in history. We are not waiting for AI to arrive. It is here. It is used by 1.8 billion people. It is writing half our code. It is saving weeks of time in corporate America.
And the tools are specialized, they are cheap, and they are highly effective.
And understanding this ecosystem is the survival skill of 2026. You cannot afford to be an ostrich with your head in the sand. Ignoring this won't make it go away. It will just make you obsolete faster.
So let's talk opportunity. We said manager of AI agents. That's the goal.
That is the goal. You need to stop viewing yourself as a worker who produces output and start viewing yourself as a manager who directs AI to produce output. The leverage you get from that shift in mindset is almost infinite. One person can do the work of 10 if they know how to manage the agents correctly.
Which brings us to the homework. We don't just want you to listen to this deep dive and nod your head. We want you to do something with this information.
Right. Here is the challenge. I want you to pick 2 tools we discussed today that are not ChatGPT.
Not ChatGPT.
Yeah.
That's the rule. You have to break the habit.
Exactly. Maybe it's Claude for a complex writing task. Maybe it's Perplexity for a research project you have for work. Maybe it's downloading the Gemini app on your phone and testing it against Google Assistant. Whatever it is, spend 1 hour with each of them this week.
Not 5 minutes. A full hour.
A full hour. Push it. See where it breaks. See where it shines.
And ask yourself one question.
What is it?
What can this tool do that ChatGPT can't? Once you understand that differentiation, you are on your way to building your stack. You are on your way to becoming that orchestrator.
That's perfect. 2 tools, 1 hour each.
I love that. Now, before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. We've been talking about tools, things we use, but there's a buzzword that is starting to pop up in all these reports we've been reading. Agentic.
Yes. This is the next frontier. This is what's coming next.
If AI agents, like the ones First Page Sage and others are defining, can plan, reason, and act autonomously, if they can break a goal down into subtasks and just go do it without your input for every step,
then we are crossing a very important line. We are moving from tools that help us work to entities that do the work for us.
And that raises the ultimate question. If the agent does the work, what is the human role? Are we the pilot? Or are we just the passenger, watching it happen?
That is the question we will be exploring in Season 3.
That is a tease, if I've ever heard one. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. This has been the AI Tools Market Report. Good luck with your homework, and we will see you on the other side.
Stay curious.
Thanks for listening. Join us next time on Surviving AI.